Who are you?
My name is James Foo Torres, but I go by Foo, and I am a piece of God. Spirituality is so deep for me. Everything is connected, and I am an indestructible soul having this experience. People come through different doors into the spiritual realm. My door was the sexual energy. Can you be flirty and exclusive at the same time? I want to ask you. I do want to explore the healing with kink, like how to integrate BDSM, like that I can tie them up and they can tie me up. Everything that comes to Puerto Rico, US has to inspect it and then goes to the stores as if we're not capable enough. How can you not remove the Jones Act? As somebody that is a veteran that have seen things, it is good to be the way of the United States. It is good to have a military that is very strong. Entrepreneurship is so challenging. It almost forces you to have something that you can rely on. You have to become better, because if not, you can't be an entrepreneur, period.
What have you learned from being in the Air Force?
The best thing that the Air Force taught me was to...
Welcome to today's episode of Getting to Know You. I'm your host, Cameron Edward Benton, and on today's episode, I have the great pleasure of introducing you to James Foo Torres, or Foo for short. Foo is a dear friend of mine. He is born and raised in Puerto Rico, where he is an entrepreneur. He is the founder and creator of El Colectivo, a community based in Puerto Rico around entrepreneurship, health, and wellness, as well as Imperium Authority, where he is a trusted advisor for a multitude of amazing companies. He is a brilliant human being, and like I said, he's a dear, dear friend of mine. I was first introduced to Foo on a short trip to Puerto Rico when my friend Stephanie Jaie, who we mentioned in this podcast, introduced us. And we got dinner, and we just had an absolute blast connecting. And he just, sparks so much joy in all of the people he's around. And so I had to have him on the show. In this episode, we talk about his spirituality, how that's been really pivotal to his journey as an entrepreneur, as well as his time in the Air Force, where he served for several years. He's a U.S. veteran, which is really interesting because as a Puerto Rican citizen, he also can't vote, which is one of the topics we get to near the end of the episode, where we talk about whether or not he thinks Puerto Rico should become a state or whether he'd prefer it become independent, and his relationship with the U.S. overall. If you're somebody who's really interested in relationships, we get into some of that topic as well as just any advice that he has for entrepreneurs. It's a really, really fun and brilliant episode. Foo is a fantastic person and listen to check out, and especially if you're in Puerto Rico, make sure to check out his stuff. Without further ado, here is getting to know James Foo Torres. Who are you?
My name is James Foo Torres, but I go by Foo, and I am a piece of God that came to this realm to feel, to explore, and to rediscover myself from a different angle.
Beautiful. How did you come to that understanding of yourself?
During this spiritual journey that I kind of started heavily with Stephanie Jaie, our friend in common, the Erotic Alchemist. Mm-hmm. I've been connecting a lot with my body, my mind, my soul. I've been diving deeper into, who am I, right? Mm. Like, what am I doing here? What's my purpose? And with the help of understanding the polarities and in my body and all that, like I've gone to the conclusion of we're all the same. We all come from the same source. Everything is perfect just how it is. Nothing is either good or bad. Everything just is. And everything is meaningless, which is a blessing, and then allows us to give meaning to what we want to give meaning to. And that's how slowly, by learning from different people, I've come to this conclusion. It's like, look, I'm a piece of God that it's here to just feel, period. There's no bad or good, or it's just here to experience this life, and without no expectation of what the outcome should be, and just focus on being an expert on myself and making the journey, the process, the goal, not the outcome. Just present.
Yeah, that was something that you and I talked to in the first podcast we did that we weren't able to use, unfortunately. But like, you are just a really deeply spiritual person, and I think that's something that's really cool in getting to know you because, I think on the outside, right, we have all this stuff around like the Instagram and whether it's like, dancing with different hot women or it's like selling a business or whatever it is, these things that kind of like seem very like surface level on one hand, but like for you, it's also deeply tapped into your sense of spirituality. This is a deep expression of your life. I'm curious, how do you find that harmony within yourself between like business and these other ventures in your life and spirituality? Do you find that they like intersect, or do you find that they are mutually exclusive?
Everything is connected, and in bringing it to the duality and like the reality of where we see things separate to make sense of them. Mm-hmm. Everything that I do has to support my main thing, which is becoming an expert on myself, mm-hmm. and making the process the destination. So it's not about when I sell this and do that, like then I'll be happy. It's more of like enjoying every step of the way, because that's the only thing that matters. And I have this vision of building this ecosystem that connects all those different things. So to make it tangible, the three main pillars of this ecosystem, let's say, are the community, which is el colectivo, which is the collective in Spanish. That's how I keep people connected. And right now it's free. I'm going to start making some premium, low ticket, just so, buy a piece of clothing or some merch and something. At least, you earn your way into the collective, el colectivo, that way. So that way there's some investment, right? So people appreciate it more. They can rock it, right? Like if they buy a shirt or hat or something and they have like that swag and they're proud of being in the collective. If you're not willing to pay me at least $30 for a shirt or something, like, then do you really want to be in the collective? Like, I'm not asking for much, right? Like, I'm not greedy here to with this component, with anything, but with this component, it's just, I want people to have at least some skin in the game to take ownership. Mm-hmm. Then there is the accelerator programs or having like paying me for being an outsourced executive, like a fractional CMO or an outsourced director of marketing, mm-hmm. Where this is the people that have more money than time, right? Mm-hmm. And they want to jam 2 years in 6 months, right. Things like that, right? And then there is the very transformative events, with the most transformative ones being retreats. Because then the way is like you can come there. I see this as many doors that you can come in to the ecosystem, right? Because you can be more interested on the events, and then now there's a community and there's these things, right? Like, or you just want the accelerator program because it's a business thing, mm-hmm. right? Like you see how like you came in just because of business, but now I want to be part of the community. I want to go to the parties. I want to go do all these things. And then there's the community where typically, I meet somebody at a party. I meet somebody at a networking event, at a radio station, and now I collected them there through the community. But now they're like, oh, you got this accelerator program, so I can hire you. Oh, you also have these events or these retreats, which are just multiple day events.
Right. Got it. So for you, I guess help me kind of connect the dots. So for you, like building these community, building these three different pillars, that is how you're, I guess, expressing your spirituality, or like it's an expression of your spirituality through that?
As I focus on becoming an expert on myself, I attract more of me. So I see all these people that I am attracted through all these different avenues. That's a reflection of me, right? Like I'm attracting these people. And how this connects to my spirituality is because I learn more about myself through them, because they are a reflection on me. So if I'm attracting these people, then what is this teaching me? Like, why am I attracting this type of people? And then I also guide them and help however I can so they can also do the same thing and focus on being an expert on themselves and analyze like, who am I attracting? Why am I attracting them? And bring them into the community, right? And just keep growing this collective so we can heal as a collective.
Got it. So like the more that you are learning about yourself, guiding about yourself, like figuring out yourself, you're finding more people that you are, attracted to, not like necessarily in a sexual manner, but like in a just like who you're drawn to, right? And like those people end up being a mirror for you that allows you to know yourself even better and get like a deeper understanding of yourself and for them.
Perfect. Man, you are so good at understanding these things because it's like I try to simplify these things and I've been simplifying them as time goes by and talking with people like you, like helps me because the questions that you answer, they ask and how you unpack the things, you're like, so it helps me simplify, but they're not very simple terms. I mean, spirituality is so deep, and especially when then I started mixing it with so many things, right? Like the business and the party and all these things, but everything for me, everything is connected, and like I am an indestructible soul having this experience, right? So everything is connected to my spirituality the way that I see it.
Yeah. And I guess with your spirituality, you mentioned like earlier, like polarities and like learning about yourself and like kind of getting this, I guess for you, were you always a deeply spiritual person, or is this something like newer that you've come into? And like, can you walk us through like that journey of like where your spirituality was to how you got to this current understanding?
So starting, as far as I can remember, my family is very Christian, like very Catholic. So learning about God and spirituality that way, it was something that was a thing since I have used on my memory, right? So me just being bored and like falling asleep in church and just not like feeling that calling from the Catholic way, let's say, of doing things, and also being forced to go to church and all that. Like I just kind of like, this is not cutting it for me. But I didn't want to stop being spiritual. Maybe at some point, like, when you start going to college and you start learning all these things and all that, like I kind of was like, am I an atheist? Like, am I agnostic? I mean, who am I? Like, you start just kind of like, you start living, I started living alone at 18. And I'm surrounded by like science and math because I was studying engineering, and all these people, all this influence are just like from professors to alumni, right? Like to all these friends, all these things that you start questioning everything, right? Like you're alone for the first time, all that. But then I slowly was like, look, I kind of like got like, I wasn't with the best people and like, drugs and drinks and like women and all this. And then I kind of like, you know what, this is not ideal. So then I kind of started connecting again with God, but then my own way. It was like, look, and then with psychedelics too, like you become really spiritual because you're like, whoa, like you start perceiving more than you can see. And you're like, there's no way that there's no more than this, right? And so psychedelics definitely was a big thing. So mushrooms for me was a big opener for the spirituality. In a non-religious way. Yeah. And so from there, I guess that kind of was my first awakening, let's call it. Yeah. And then
is that like mid-20s? Like how old are you when that's happening?
No, sooner, like 20, maybe flat. Like,
okay, cool.
Maybe 1920. Because it wasn't my first year freshman, but it was like my second or third. So
got it.
Then so like I'm there, like the first awakening in my 19 or 20. Then from there I kind of kept about with the same awakening, kind of trying to get deep into it and like psychedelics, but then how can I just not depend on these things and look for other ways. And from there, like then I didn't really progress a lot up until I started becoming an entrepreneur. So I became an entrepreneur. What was it, like at 28? I think it was like at 28. So right, like, so there's a big chunk, almost 10 years, right, that goes by, like at least 8 years minimum. And the reason that I got more connected to my spirituality was because entrepreneurship is so challenging that it almost forces you to have something that you can rely on, right? That is bigger than yourself, because you're falling apart, because like so many things that you have to take account for, and then you start hiring people, and then you're dealing with yourself, and now you gotta deal with people, right? It's while you're trying to sell people, and then so there's so much into that goes. It takes a toll on you mentally, energetically. That I was like, look, I need to connect more. So I was looking actively. I was like, how? And then I started with like manifestation people, and then like I was like, should I, like, I want to give a chance again to more Christianity, but not going Catholic, but talk like learning about Jesus and learning about that Christianity without having to be attached to religion, but also like what else is out there, like Buddhism and all that. So I was just kind of curious. I was just looking, and it wasn't until I found some people that got me some things here and there, but it wasn't like a true like big awakening up until right before turning 30. I met Stephanie Jaie, and that was a big shit for me. Like I finally found somebody that could explain spirituality to me in a way that was grounded. So a lot of mixing metaphysics with real physics and biology and anatomy, and that combination helped me really visualize it and really start believing in it. Because you hear all these woo things and you're like, I want to believe in it, but if I can't visualize it, it's hard for me to just take words for it. But then when you start getting it grounded, it's like, oh, so okay, physically, your biology, this is what's happening, and then like if we go spirituality, energetically, this is what's happening. So that connection was a thing that really made it more real for me, and then got me more interested in start implementing things and just getting deeper into it.
Do you remember what it was that like Steph said or taught you in particular that like really like clicked for you, where like, oh, this is what makes sense, like this is what's resonating?
At least the first thing that comes to mind, and I think is the phrase of first of all, like, let me give you a little bit of context. Like, I think that I've come to realize that a lot of people come through different doors into the spiritual realm. Like, and to give context to that is my door. To give an example, like my door was the sexual energy, because I consider myself a very sexual person, but I was in a relationship where I had sex all the time and it was good, but it came to a point that it wasn't fulfilling me, and I started to question, am I wrong for wanting more? Because my partner at the time, she was like, oh, you always want more and more and more, and not just on the sexual part, on everything. Like, it was just like, I'm a guy that was like always trying to improve, and I'm always, of course I want more. Like, I can reach this level, I want to go to the next level. But being with her made me question. Look, I'm not gonna blame her. Am I wrong? So I'm gonna look for help. And the door that really, like, when I met Steph, and she calls herself the Erotic Alchemist. I started learning about what alchemy is, transforming bad to good, right? Like negative into positive, or like pain into magic, right? Like there's different ways that they're put onto it, but it's that transformation of energy. But then she focused on that erotic energy. And because I came to her, because the thing, I guess the last drop that I was willing to look for help was on that sexual thing. Because I was like, I like, am I wrong for liking anal? Like, is that wrong? Like, am I wrong? Am I fucked up? Like, is it porn fucked me, or blah, blah, blah? Like, I started looking for this thing, saying she gave me two two major things. The first one was when she told me that the sexual energy was the most powerful energy in the world, the only one that creates life. So if you can use different energies to manifest, you can leverage energies, why not use the most powerful one in the world, which is sexual energy? And I was like, damn, you're right. Like, and this makes sense. I mean, everybody that I see, every single human, and like even animals, like they're here because of, even plants, they have a sexual thing. Like there's the male and female and all that. Like they exist, those polarities. So that was a simple phrase that would got me to things like, like makes sense that if I'm gonna prioritize learning about energies and what energy to use, should be this one, when I'm also very passionate about it. So like I feel like I have so much sexual energy, so why not harness it for good, which, you know, that's where the alchemy comes into play.
Beautiful. And how did you start using that, like your own sexual energy, to harness and create things for good, like you said? Like how did you actually start doing that?
First step, simplest step, that she got me to do breathwork. That was the first thing. It was, first we're gonna focus on box breathing, right? Just like the simple thing that we don't, right? Like just, you know, inhale. We can do it right now, right? Like inhale for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, release for 4 seconds, and then hold it for 4 seconds, and then again. So like that simple thing, just to keep that pattern, that's not natural for you. So you have to really focus on. So that helped me get out of my mind and get into the body and feel it. And just, that's how you enter to a meditative state. Because you can't, like, if you start thinking of all this stuff, your rhythm goes away and then you're like, oh, go back to the breathing. Boom. So that was the simplest thing that she gave me. And then after that, it was, okay, let's progress, right? So, okay, you're doing the box breathing, you're doing 3 minutes, increase to 5 minutes, increase to 10 minutes, right? Okay, cool, you're doing that, great. And now let's start doing more of almost like a psychedelic breathing, like the belly chest out, right? Just like belly chest out, and then there was like different like sections. It was like, okay, in the first one, just focus on belly chest out. Then in the second section, because I started doing like timers, so it's like the first 3 minutes and 3 minutes and things like that. I forgot how many minutes, but and then I started like. She told me, like, imagine the second section was like, imagine that you're breathing through your genitals. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I'll try, you know? And then how I internalized it was to kind of like, almost like clenching my butt and like kind of like, you know, like when you like you're peeing or you're like, you know, like you're pooping or whatever, like you kind of like clench your butt and like let it go. So I was just kind of like, that's the way that I could make sense of like, okay, I'm breathing through my genitals, right? Like I'm breathing, like I'm just visualizing, I'm just breathing through it. And then the third part was to start then incorporating touch. And then like you can touch however you want, but just don't aim to climax, to like, it's not masturbate. It's more of like, learn what excites you, well, you know, what gets you hard, what you like, you know, even if it gets you hard or not, like what do you like, what type of touch you like, it, like what parts of your body do you like more, and so that's, you know, how we went from breath work to let's start integrating the body and go into that somatic healing and just have fun with it and just you and your body, and that's it.
Beautiful. And so once you were there, once you went from like the breath work to like starting to like incorporate touch and like, I would say like moving more of that sensual or sexual energy, like how did you go from there to like, how did that translate into changes in your actual life?
The easiest thing is my communication skills got better because I pause more, because I just go back to my breath. Just like I practice so much and I think about so much about focusing on my breathing that it helps me like to just stop and breathe instead of saying ums and likes and get stuck on talk without pausing, things like that. So that's one big thing. The breath work has helped me, and then when it comes to the sexual part, it has helped me with relationships, because when I have a partner, I am more clear on what I like. So I can have conversations prior to, which are things also that I learned from Chelsea, was Chelsea Browse, Chelsea Bra in Instagram. So she made a post about like these questions to ask to have with a potential or a partner, right? What would you like to do to get in the mood prior to getting to doing sex, right? Like getting in the mood to have sex. Like, what things do you like? And then I also tell, right? Like, this is what I like. This is cool. Like, it's aligning, and so now you don't have to ask next time. There's a spontaneous, you can be spontaneous. You don't have to be asking, which that can kill the mood. But if you do it, that you're just having normal conversations, you're bringing all this stuff, then the sex gets a lot better because you already know. So that's how learning about myself, like what I like, and then knowing how to communicate it, and going back to like, while I'm having these conversations, if they're saying something that triggers me or something, then I feel it. I'm like, hey, I'm not blaming you. This is just what I'm feeling, because you get so much more in tune with your body, and knowing that, just focus on your breathing. Don't blame the person. Like, I'm just letting you know what is coming up for me. Those have translated into better relationships with people, and they either works better or it doesn't work, and then we cut it faster to avoid then going into trying to go into something that's not going to work.
Yeah, that makes sense. And is that, I guess for you, is that just your like romantic relationships, or is that with like other relationships as well?
With other relationships as well, because it's not just, when I talk about sexual energy, I mean, we can also talk about pleasure energy. And you can have pleasure with things that are not sexual. So also understanding what caused me pleasure outside of the sexual, it also like helps me to have better relationships, because when I'm with this person, I feel more relaxed. Or that could be family, that could be friend, that could be a business connection. Yeah. So I treat relationships like generally the same in essence. It's just a matter of like, as the intentions get clear, then obviously, is it more sexual? Is it more friendly? Is it more business? Right? And there's a lot of crossroads, right? Like there's like, it could be different things and at different moments. So like I navigate things as like, look, you're a human, I'm a human, and let's see if we can exchange energy in a way that feels fair for the both of us, regardless of what type of energy it is.
Beautiful. So what I'm hearing in that is like through the breath work, and then like learning your own body in a sense, and not just like from, like you said, like from a sexual sense, but just learning what feels good to you and how things feel, you're able to translate into when you're talking with different people, for whether it's business or a friendship or whatever it is, where it's like you're tuning into like, how do I feel in this moment, and do I want to keep feeling this way with this person, right? Does this feel like a business energy and a capacity to create something cool, or does it feel like maybe this is a no, even if like they might be saying all the right things, you have a better like somatic capacity for feeling and reading people that's on that like visceral level.
Yeah, so then you learn to trust your intuition more. Yeah. Because this is something that I was talking with Chels yesterday, actually, because we're going to do a TikTok live. And I've been focusing a lot through this journey. How do I translate what the body's telling me? Sometimes my mind doesn't know, doesn't remember, is not getting it, but then the body is making you feel certain things, that if you're able to know your body enough to then translate those things into something that you can take action on, right? Like, okay, I'm feeling this, so I should remove myself from here, or I should stop and breathe, or I should bring like, I feel like when they said something, I think I should bring this up because, I felt something, and not blaming them, but just like, hey, this came up, right? So just translating is understanding your body and being able to translate that into then action and how to better, like, get in a better situation, right? Like, I'm feeling something. How do I react to it? How do I process it?
Yeah. What I kind of hear in that is, instead of like going into your body and like trying to analyze or feel it, like really tuning in and listening to the body. My last podcast guest I just had, Misha Bayrak, which I think is an episode you really love. He talks a lot about like this idea of attunement, right? And this ability to like tune into yourself and how you're feeling, but also how the other person's feeling as well, right? And being able to like connect and listen and slow down, but like not on just that auditory word level, but really how you're feeling, right? And use that as a form of communication to better understand each other. I
love that. And that aligns very much with what's happening for me and what I'm working on, constantly getting better, right? Because one thing that I want to bring in here, now that we're here, I think you will like this, is there's this topic that I've been discussing with people in the last week, let's say, which is, can you be flirty and exclusive at the same time? I want to ask you. I want to know your answer to this. I know it's your podcast, but I want to ask you too.
For me,
yeah.
I think you can. I think it really depends on your boundaries with that person that you're exclusive with, right? And what that exclusiveness means to you. Because if you're a swinger and you're exclusive, like, your boundaries are going to be very different from like a, I would say like a Catholic religious, like deeply exclusive, like almost all of our energy is just within each other, right? That's gonna be very different. So I think it's like just very different depending on your boundaries and agreements with whoever that partner is and what exclusivity means to you.
So between me, this she's a therapist, like a licensed therapist, and so may I too, right? Because we started define. So let's define terms, like, which a lot of great podcasters like Alex Ramosi and Chris something, the guy that they always do this great podcast.
Chris Williamson.
It's like right. Let's define terms, right? Like, we're not talking about what does it mean to be flirty, what does it mean to be exclusive, right? Like, let's define those terms, and they're not mutually exclusive. And then it's the way that I see it. Every relationship, or even the relationship that you even have with yourself, even, like, could be, right? Because if you're alone, it's like exclusivity is like, who do you allow to yourself to exchange energy with? Like, period. It doesn't have to be in a flirty way. It's just a matter of like, I consider myself exclusive, and I don't give my energy to anybody. I'm very picky about it, because as I should, because you got to protect your energy. So that's way, like, you can be alone, you can be single and still be exclusive. Then there's the flirty part of what's the intention behind it, right? And being flirty is like looking for connection, looking for play. Right, but not necessarily it's like, hey, I want to fuck you. Like, it's not like that, right? So it's just defining those things, and when it comes to, like, alone or not, I see it is all about agreements and boundaries. That's how I see it.
Yeah. I feel very much the same. I'm curious for you, is there a reason that particular conversation is like top of mind at the moment?
Yeah, because my best friend, she's female best friend, she was telling me that we talk about relationships all the time, right? Like, we talk about that. I mean, she's my best friend, so obviously, like, there's the other people that you constantly tell about, like, hey, I'm talking with this girl, I like this, or oh, this happened, whatever, right?
Sure.
And then she was telling me, like, she told me, it's like, I think you should be more exclusive. And I'm like, I definitely want to be exclusive. I don't want to be somebody that just gives his energy to anybody. And then I start thinking about, like, I have a naturally flirty personality, but when is it too much, or too, or when do I stop being exclusive? Like, what's that healthy balance, right? Like, that's the thing that I started diving into as she told me that, because it's like, I'm not gonna be like feel attacked and get them like, no, I'm exclusive, like, you don't understand me or whatever. Instead of, I didn't take it bad or good. I just took it as, am I exclusive? Am I too flirty? Am I like, is there something that I should, like, can I improve on this? I'm always looking to improve, right? Can I improve on this? So I start discussing it with I have people in my network that are, like, licensed therapists and all kinds of people, and I put it on Instagram and things like that. So people start chiming in, and a lot of great discussions came into that. And I've been analyzing those things because I'm single and I do want to have a partner. I'm not in a rush. I'm like, I don't want to rush things or anything. I just want to I want to flow and really get something that aligns with me. Because when I get a partner, I want to get a life partner, right? And I am exploring things like, I joined the Kinky Collective here in Puerto Rico, and started, like, I went to my first kinky party, and it wasn't too extreme, right? But I started, like, kind of like learning the people, and then I'm like, damn, I really like these people, and I'm learning, like, because I'm very new into this thing. I've never been polyamorous per se, right? I feel like I have a lot of love to give, and I don't want to try to lie to myself and be like, oh, I'm doing this in a spiritual way and blah blah blah, but in reality I'm just going for like just like, I'm horny and blah blah blah. No, like, I want to, I don't know, like, analyze myself and be like, okay, stop, and be like, be honest with yourself. Like, are you doing this because you just saw a pair of tits or blah blah blah, or like, are you doing this because you're genuinely looking to connect and explore yourself through these people? And what type of partner do you want, right? Like, and for that, I need to work on myself. I need to learn about myself, so then I can attract that I am, that I see aligning with me.
Yeah, beautiful. For you personally, at this, like, juncture, like, what are, like, the main things that you're, like, that stand out for you in, like, that ideal partner, that life partner that you're looking for?
Someone that is spiritual, for sure, obviously, because it has to be deep, because I want to have deep conversations. Someone that is secure about themselves, so they don't project their insecurities, so we can have conversations, and both we can be like, hey, I'm feeling this, I'm not blaming you, I'm just saying that what you did, this causing me, and I want us to unpack this together, right? Like, because, like, why did I feel this? Like, maybe I don't remember, but let's explore the body. Let's, in having that somatic healing together, and being able to be complete beings by ourselves, but then when we come together, we complement each other and make each other better, rather than depending on each other. Right? It's nice to feel like you can depend on somebody, which is good. Like, if I need support, I have it, but not that I need this person or else then I can't be happy, right? Like, that's just not right, not healthy. That's not what I want. So those are the qualities that I'm looking in a partner, and they also, like, they have to have similar interests, similar things, like the music, for example. If you don't like going to festivals, it's not gonna work, I mean, then willing to explore, because I'm exploring, and I don't know if I'm gonna like being non-monogamous or whatever. Like, I don't know, because I've never experienced it, but I do want to explore it. It's like, how does it feel? Like, also, all the willing to explore the healing with kink, like how to integrate BDSM, like that I can tie them up and they can tie me up because we trust each other. We give everything, all the power to destroy us, but then they choosing not to. That's something super deep and spiritual, even though we're dealing with kinky stuff, right? And if they're not willing to do those things, then like they're not my people, because then I wouldn't be exploring something that I'm very passionate. I feel a calling to explore. So those are the things that they have to be willing to go into this journey of like pushing the limits and living on the edge and testing things. And if we don't like something, great. If we like something, even better, right? And being able to communicate it in an objective way, or as objective as possible, because there's only so objective you can be, right? We're all subjective in one way or another.
Yeah. No, I agree. I've come to the idea that like it's really not about being objective, but like just being aware of how you are subjective, right? And it's like, here are my biases. I can't actually be objective, but I can at least be aware of some of my limitations, right? As I talk about this thing.
I completely agree, man. Like we align on this. We talked about this. I mean, you, me, Hope, all that stuff. Like dude, it's just we got some deep conversations when we went to LIB, right? Like lining in a bottle was epic, dude. I have my ticket for next year, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm going, bro.
I still gotta get mine. I mean, the lineup is awesome. I mean, Subtronics is going to be there. He's one of my favorite artists, and a few others. So like, I'm definitely wanting to go. I got to figure out a few things this year, but I'm definitely like it's on the horizon.
There's time. There's time. There's make time. The move, dude. You know how good it. Dude.
Yeah, I know. One of the things you mentioned about like that ideal partner for you is that they are like complementing the parts that you like don't do well, or like you don't necessarily have within you. Like what are some of the parts for you that like you don't do well, or where you feel like you need a partner who fills in a different area where you're not an expert at necessarily?
I would like a female that is very in touch with their divine feminine energy, right? They're nurturing, they're taking care of those almost like traditional things, right? And it's not like I just want like this cookie cutter traditional wife, but there is some beauty into the traditional roles things. Like, for example, for her to be in charge of the food for the most of the parts, like make sure that we're fed as a family. That doesn't mean like, oh, cook and clean yourself. It's just a matter of like you're kind of leading it, and I'm kind of helping in whatever you need me to help. And if we need to hire somebody or blah blah blah, like, but you're kind of taking care of it. Like who is the person that is helping you, so you don't have to do it alone. And then like I can be paying for it. And but it's like we divide into roles, and they don't have to be super traditional gender roles. But there's some of the traditional things that I really like. I'm very liberal, and I'm very like, fuck labels. We come into our own things, but there are some things of having a wife that is the one that is in charge of taking care of the family, nurturing, and really using that divine power that comes from their wombs. There's like that. I see it as that portal to the divinity, and being able to have her. Like I want somebody that's kind of like witchy almost, like she's doing like the herbs and like taking care of we have like our plants, and I'm there like, hey, I'll do the stuff, like I get it ready, but you're maintaining it, you're the one like taking it and cooking, and and teaming up with people, like whatever the case may be, because I see the future as collective, so I want to live with people and being able to like, hey, you got tomatoes and I got lemons and I got whatever, right? And we're sharing, because that's the best way that we can stay healthy. And I love just being with people. I'm a social butterfly. I love being as a collective. That's what I call my community, el colectivo, because that's what I'm looking for. So those are the things is so I can be the one that I consider myself a trailblazer, and like I want to be like opening new paths and just testing the limits and pushing the limits of what's possible, right? Like creating, providing, protecting, and really like discovering new things, opening paths. And then, hey, like I open the path, it's good, it's clear, now come. But while I'm doing that, I don't want to be I want to save all my mental power to decision makings of that. rather than what am I gonna wear, what am I gonna eat, all those like mundane things, which there's a lot of beauty into them too, but like those are not my preferred roles, and I feel like I can bring a lot of value if I don't focus on those things and I focus what I'm really good at.
Got it. Beautiful. Yeah, I think that like gender roles are such a fascinating thing because it's obviously like it's a touchy subject with so many different people. And I think actually even the conversation I had with Hope was, one of the things that she did when she was in college was like really sort of unpack all these different gender roles. Like we don't need labels, like you said, like we don't need all these things. And one of the things we talked about was like the importance of looking at like what do these different roles provide us, right? And like not necessarily that you were forced or boxed into a particular role, but like understanding the value of like complementary pieces and how we can work together and fit together. And by tapping into that, right, we can create like a harmonious relationship and whatever that looks like, right?
Exactly. I love that, creating a harmonious relationship, not forcing to a role or you should be or shouldn't be. Like there's shit on the should have. That's something I don't even know who told me that, but I really loved it. It was like shit on the should have. Like should have what? Like no, nothing should have been that way or should not be that way. Everything just is, and we decide, especially in our relationships, like how that harmonious relationship, how that happens. Like you take care of this, I'll take care of that. Feels fair, the exchange, we're good. And also a concept that I want to bring into this right now is I think it was, I don't know if it was like the Cardone's wife or somebody that says like, as long as like we together make 100%, it doesn't matter what percentage each is putting. Like sometimes, oh no, I think that was Michelle Obama. It was like she was saying like sometimes Barack Obama needed to focus completely on like some stuff and then eventually became president, right? So she was taking like 90%, 80% of the load of taking care of the kids at times. But then in other times, like he was taking most of the loads when she was doing something. And it was in general, like, so as long as together they gave 100%. So it's like, hey, today I woke up and most I can give you is 20%. Like I'm at 20%, this is how much I can give you. And then the partner be like, don't worry, I'll put the 80 this time. Then, it can happen different ways. So that's a good analogy that I really liked.
Yeah, I heard, I think it was from, oh man, I can't remember her name, but she has a podcast. I feel like her name's Robin, but I can't think of her last name. But she was talking about, because she has been primarily the breadwinner in her family, it's been like really interesting for her to see like how like the different gender role type things that we normally ascribe to gender were happening, but in reverse for them, because she was the one outside and he was the one at home being like, can you help take out the trash? And like, because she's not there all the time, like with the family, at the point where he had to bring up a lot of issues that like a lot of times like the wife is bringing up to the man. And so it's like, it's interesting for me to see how, regardless of the gender, but more about the role that they're filling, that's where like these different conflicts or issues or challenges arise, right? And I think it's like very astute to kind of notice those things and like figure out like, hey, like you said, like get out of like the should concept, but like how are we going to make this work for us, and like what fits us, and how are we going to make this relationship work?
Exactly. There's no right or wrong way to do it, just whatever works for you. And there's certain things that need to be in consideration of, if you feel more confident spending most of your time in your masculine energy. And this has nothing to do with sexual orientation or what you like. It's just a matter of like, look, I'm in my more masculine energy. I like being more in there. And that's why like I'm always like I'm working, I'm doing all these structural things and holding space and all that. But then when it comes to the bedroom, then I then want to feel like you're taking care of me. Like I want to be submissive. I'm always bossing around people, right? Like let's say a female that is the breadwinner. When it comes to bed, I don't want to boss anybody. I want to let go. I want to disconnect, right? So that's a great example on how like the like gender roles and like the difference between the masculine and feminine energy, and how that has nothing to do with then what you like sexually or on a partner, right? So you can separate those things, and that awareness. I've always been kind of like shit on the should have, like, for a long time. It's college, all that stuff. Like, I'm like, look, nothing should be or shouldn't be that way. But with Steph, it helped me a lot to understand better the polarities, right? The light and dark masculine, light and dark feminine. And now, like, when you have the awareness, then you see it better and you understand it better. And you, like, not only outside, but then also inside. It's like, like, I am right now in this energy. I think it's serving me great. I am in this energy and I think it's not serving me. Okay, let me center myself, breathing, dancing, whatever, like you want, centered. Now, what quadrant do I want to go that I know is going to serve me the most at the given moment?
Yeah, beautiful. I want to take a pivot over to, I believe you were in the military at one point. Is that correct? Yeah,
Air Force.
You were Air Force, yeah. And you were also like born in Puerto Rico, born and raised in Puerto Rico. And Puerto Rico isn't like officially a state, and so then you choose to go into like the U.S. military. So I'm curious about just like your own, I don't know, relationship with the military, with the U.S., like as a Puerto Rican, citizen. Like tell me a little bit about that.
Let's start with mixed feelings for sure.
Yeah.
Let's start there. I've gotten so many amazing opportunities by being a territory of the United States that even though we're not in the best position, because we are and we aren't part. It's like, oh, you're kind of like, step kid. It's like, oh, you're not blood, but you're kind of like there, and yeah. Sometimes we doubt if they really love us or not, so that's why I have mixed feelings, because simple things, like tangible things, as like in your audience, if they don't know about this, but probably most of them that listen to this won't know, there's this thing called the Jones Act. The Jones Act establishes that everything that comes to Puerto Rico, and sometimes even what we produce, before going to the stores, like, for example, I produce something and before it goes to Walmart, U.S. has to inspect it, and then goes to the stores, as if we're not capable enough to inspect our own stuff.
Yeah,
which is creating billions, if not trillions, I don't even know. Like, let's say billions of dollars for the United States. So when you think about the United States give us grants and help with FEMA and all these different things. But if you then put that against all like the fees that are getting that they're taxing us by like inspecting everything that comes, and that's just that Jones Act, right? Like, we can go deeper into things, but just the Jones Act alone, it's just like they're taking way more money than they give us, and then they sell us this idea of like, oh, if the United States is not with us, then we're gonna lose like the Pell Grant and the like the Section 8 and the whatever, like we're gonna lose all these things. But then if we save all this money on the Jones Act, then we can redistribute and pay for those things ourselves. So there's those things that I'm like, how can you not remove the Jones Act? Like, we are capable of doing ourselves. Like, in a long time ago, when they came here, and like Puerto Ricans were like pretty savage when, like, that transition. Then Spain came here, like, we're Indian, right? Like, native Indians here, and then Spain comes and they start like reforming things, and then now like there's this thing that now U.S. kind of wins over Puerto Rico from that. Like, in those times, inspecting everything because somebody can infiltrate to then attack you and all those things, like, that makes sense. It was the Wild West back then, right? It was crazy. But we're 2024 now. I mean, that we are capable. There's enough technology and things that and capable people here that we can certify it, and we can have all those things to be able to help ourselves. So those are the things that cause mixed feelings, because I'm completely bilingual. I've traveled the world. I went to Syria, Kuwait, Qatar, all these things. I have my first full-time job because of the Air Force. My first car, credit, my first house. Like, I have VA benefits. I mean, there's so much that I'm so grateful for. that I can't say that I regret joining the Air Force. I can't say that I hate the United States. I mean, it's just there's certain things that cause mixed feelings. But I mean, I'm super grateful of all the opportunities that the Air Force and being part of the United States have brought me.
Yeah. Cool. Like, where do you sit with the whole, just make Puerto Rico a state then kind of thing, or versus like letting it go? Like, where you personally sit with that, if you feel comfortable sharing?
I mean, dude, you know me. I'm comfortable sharing everything. But the only thing is that I'm not so sure because there's pros and cons, and I just want a healthy relationship, and that could happen many ways, right? Like we could be independent and still have a great partnership with the United States. We could keep what we have, which is, it's called Estado Libre Asociado, which is like free associated state. That's what translates to. That's what we are, which is people call it our territory, but like, right. That's what the official name. And then there's being a state, right? And I think all of them with the right terms could be beneficial. So it's just, I care more about the terms of the relationships that we have rather than what is our stance, right? Obviously for maybe smaller stuff, or like, for example, like, in the Olympics and things like that, right? Like Puerto Rico being their own country, it's kind of nice, right? Like Puerto Rico, you represent Puerto Rico, not the United States. But if you're good enough, you'll be in the team of the United States, right? Like, right. So it's just, I have mixed feelings as somebody that is very proud to be in Puerto Rican and know that we're different. I would like to be independent and then have a relationship where we still have a relationship with the United States that, you get value from us, we get value from you, and that's it. But I wouldn't be against being a state and then having a healthy relationship and then we have better opportunities here, right? So it's just a matter of like, what does the being state or independent really means to Puerto Rico more than the actual, state.
Yeah. And I forget, like, as a Puerto Rican citizen, are you still able to like vote in like presidential elections and things like that? So you can't vote in that.
So that's a big thing. It's like, how can we not vote for the president? We don't have a president. Like, we have the governor, but how can we not vote with somebody that is taking decisions that will affect us?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that would be like my one question, like around like the statehood versus independent part is like, would it be worth it to be a state just so you can influence what's happening in the rest of the United States? Like, that's one of the things I keep thinking about with, I know there's like Trump recently had a thing where he was talking about like annexing Canada into the United States, which I think is like a bit of a joke, but like,
but people are like,
yeah, but one of the things I'm curious about is because I went to Germany recently, and there's a lot of like talk about the election because I was there during the election time, and I was thinking about, I was like, one of the things that I noticed there is that there's this kind of like feeling of at cause from the United States, right? Because it's like, it's so big and influential and powerful within the world right now, right? And like whatever the US does, like, has ripple effects across the world. And my thought is like, well, why, if that's the case, wouldn't you want to influence that yourself by being able to vote? Even if you're like other countries, because functionally, like, even though we operate at the Olympics as like one country, functionally we're 50 countries, right? We're 50 countries working together in a very unique way. And if you don't believe we're different countries, like, go to Florida and then come out here to Seattle and then go to Texas and go to New York. Like, these are very different worlds that we're all
people
living.
Talk different, they live different, they like different things. It is different countries together. For sure, dude. The United States is, there's so much diversity in the United States. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess I kind of, to pivot that into a question for you, like, if you were then able to, influence the vote and influence the elections and influence these things by becoming a state, is that something that would like appeals more to you as a state, or you still want to lean more independent and just kind of remove yourselves completely from the U.S. in that regard?
When you put it like that, you sold it to me very well. You know, because it's like it is true. I mean, there's no doubt that the United States it's incredibly influential in the world. I mean, there's just no doubt of that. So being able to be a state so we can vote and then influence the world, basically, it's a great selling point.
That's good to know because I've been thinking about that in the back of my head lately. So I'm glad to know it's persuasive.
It was. I mean, you sold it to me, and obviously I could have arguments to say like, I mean, we're so small and being influential and all that. Like it's fine, but yeah, like I really like that, especially as somebody that is a veteran that have seen things that have. Being in the other side of the world and not as a tourist, but as a military man, exploring these things and protecting. And, I was a radar technician, so I provide sky picture. So literally like friend or foe, 240 nautical miles. That was my job, Wow. So being part of that and even in needs to know basis that, a lot of things they don't tell me because I don't need to know. When they start, like I received 2 achievement medals and then they tell me that I'm responsible of all these different things. I'm like, okay, like, my part really I had a big role on protecting the United States and the world, because one thing that my stepdad, he was in the military and he was an army infantryman. And he told me that in a way, like, because of our power, it kind of like Spider-Man, right? With a lot of power comes a lot of responsibility. So people see the United States almost as the cop of the world in a way. And then the United Nations kind of supposed to be like the whole thing, right? It's like we all together are serving as cops almost of the world to protect, like, so the little guys don't get run over, right? Like, so those things are like, that gives you perspective, because the world it's brutal. I mean, we're still monkeys with that we developed a little bit, but like we're still pretty primal. Like we're pretty primates. Like we still have a lot of things that are pretty primitive. And if it wasn't because of all this protection, and you see it in a lot of countries, it's crazy. It's all about like who has guns and power and all that. And for us to even have the right and the liberty to talk bad about the government without the government coming us and cutting our heads or whatever, like extreme things that happen in other places, that is a blessing. Like you are so free that you're allowed to talk shit on your government. You're allowed to complain from the comfort of your air conditioned home, right? Like it's so that's why it's like, I understand that life can be brutal, because I've been to Syria, I've been to Qatar, I've seen things. I've seen also crazy wealth like Qatar, crazy, dude. And so I've seen all these things that it's hard not to feel like it is good to be the way of the United States. It is good to have a military that is very strong, because even though we're spending all this money, I mean, if that's what keeps us in power, then it's sometimes like if you don't have the power, then somebody can just come in and run you over, right? So it's just like in the world, at the first chance that somebody has it, like they will do it, because it's proven like by history that we will take advantage of us if they can.
Yeah, I was wondering, with your military history and being in the Air Force, you said a few times like you've seen things or seen that kind of crazy things out there in other areas. I'm like, is there a story that you have from any of these experiences, like in the Air Force, that you feel comfortable sharing?
Let me see. I mean, simple things like, I'm a radar technician, right? So you see like movies, really, like literally like the scanning thing, and you see dots and like see some squares, like that's real, like that's what I worked on, like so it's real. and then when you saw a dot, like, so we have three different like radars in one, right? So there's the big one that just does the big blast to 240 nautical miles. Then there's the radio one, basically, that it's just kind of like it goes directly to the transponder. And then if you respond, then great, like we know you're a friend, like you responded, right? If that goes and then it doesn't, and you don't respond back, then it's like, why am I picking up something but it's not responding? Right? Then you start kind of questioning there. And the other one is like omnidirectional to like kind of make sure that it continuously like looking at everything while the other one is kind of like rotating. So, and that's a little bit more closer, right? So people get a little bit closer. So let's focus on the main two, which like if I see a dot but then I don't see a square, because if I see a dot in a square, great, I picked up something with the main radar, and then the secondary responded, friend, good, we're Gucci, we see with our friend just flying. So if we see that dot and then suddenly they're not responding, and then suddenly you see that they send other ones that are friends, and then the other one disappears, you know what happened. You know, like they said something, there was a dot and there's not a dot anymore, right? And with our need to know basis, we don't get told much was what's happening, but we know what's happening, because then they tell, oh, we were responsible of X amount of insurgents or whatever they want to call it, right? Like, so those things are kind of like, you know, crazy, especially when you're in Syria, right? Like you're in Syria, you know, Syria's going crazy. So it's like, you know, is that coming to us? Is it not? Like, you know, one of the biggest things was my last deployment. I was in Qatar, and I was they call it Camp Cupcake because Qatar is a huge base established. They let you go out, you know. So I was able to see Qatar and all that, and hang out with one of like some people that were connected with one of the sheiks, and it was like experience to be like with a car of a sheik and be driving around. I got that experience, dude.
So you're driving the sheik's car, or
no,
you're driving
this
the
girl,
sheik was driving your?
So this girl,
Okay.
her dad is best friends with one of the sheiks, right? There's a lot of them, right? And then the car was in the name of the sheik, so she could do whatever. And then, like, if the cars, she got stopped by a cop, and she showed, and the license of the car said, like, it was from the sheik. He's like, oh, you're good. And, like, she didn't get tickets or anything. Dude, she was above the law, dude. It was crazy.
Wild.
Dude, and, like, this, like, my friend connected with this girl through, like, Tinder, dude. And, like, we were hanging out with this girl around. We went to this, like, race. There were racing cars. Dude, they were having the skylines there as if it was fucking Hot Wheels, basically. It was just like, it's crazy wealth there. Like, crazy, right? But the thing is, like, oh, I'm experiencing this. And then the kind of like the Cold War almost happened of the tension with Iran. So they tell us, look, if Iran decides to bomb us right now, we don't have enough artillery or defenses to stop it. So you're like, fuck. Like, oh, so... I mean, good to know. Thanks for letting me know. But like at the same time, it's like, fuck, you know? But then they also tells us like, look, obviously they can do it, but they won't do it if they want to live, right? Like, because automatically they bomb us. Dude, seconds later, most of Iran would disappear because the United States won't play. Dude, it was Trump also as a president, dude. Like, you knew that, like, automatically something happened, like, Iran was gonna disappear. So I slept well thinking I know that they probably have some people that don't care and they will sacrifice, but they're not willing to sacrifice the whole country. Right. So they won't destroy one of the biggest bases in the other side of the world, which is Qatar, established with like all the sheiks are involved, all that, right? Like we're in this country, like they're not gonna attack the richest country of the world. Like they're not gonna attack that. So they're not stupid. So then it was like, if they wanted, they could, but they would disappear after. So it was like, okay, we're fine, right? But then it was just like starting like training and bunker training and getting this and Kevlars and all that stuff, because it was like, hey, we need to prepare just in case. I mean, and then, you know, you saw that movement. And then shortly after, COVID happened. Me deployed. So it was like, wow, this is supposed to be Camp Cupcake. Everything changed, the food, everything, because then you couldn't go out. You couldn't even play basketball. Dude, everything was just crazy. So Camp Cupcake did not, you know, it wasn't Camp Cupcake anymore.
Camp COVID instead.
Camp COVID. So that was the last thing. And then right after that, I came back with some money. There was COVID. There was nothing to do. And that's when I started my agency. So, that was a good thing about that I came out and on my last 6 months of my contract, started my agency. And then from there, it's been over for 4.5 years now.
Oh. What have you learned from being in the Air Force that's like shaped who you are today?
I've said this many times, and I'll say it so many times. The best thing that the Air Force taught me was to embrace the suck. Because it's a common phrase in the military, because you're deployed, you're in Syria, like you have to embrace the suck, and we do it together as brothers and sisters, and we're like, look, we're all in this together. We have to do it. This is our role. This is what we have to do. Yes, we're sleeping in tents, but hey, we have air conditioner. We have good bathrooms. That we have all these things that like it would have been a lot worse if you were in older times, or even right now, like being a Marine and things like that, right? Like that would be crazy. Special forces, all that stuff, which we were an oasis for a lot of the special forces, man. Like they came to there because it's the biggest airline. Airline in Syria. We had it, so because we got there, and so we got all this like the special forces men that came to like oasis in there, because it was like northeast of Syria, so we're kind of far from the action. We have ice, we have a lot of perimeters, so it was like the oasis. People come to there. So even though I was in Syria, I was in the best that the Air Force and the military could offer in Syria, in the conditions. I mean, it's Syria, right? And in a like non-tourist, like just bunch of anything that we just built on there, right? Desert. So that's the biggest thing that I got, is because for entrepreneurship and life in general, but entrepreneurship being such a challenging thing. Learning to embrace the suck is a great skill to have as an entrepreneur, because you're eating glass, like a lot of people call it, right? Like you're constantly getting punched in the face, like spending so much time giving value to people, so for them to then say no or lie to you or ghost you or all these things, and you gotta wake up the next day and do it again and get better. And how can I get better at communicating and giving value and all that? So embracing the suck has been the best thing that I got out of the military, because I carry it to me to this day, and I will carry it for me to the rest of my life.
How do you embrace the suck? Is it simply just like tolerating and like being able to go through and like feel the shitty feelings and move through that, or is it like developing a sense of humor around it? Like, what is your version of like embrace the suck look like?
It's a combination. It's definitely, because there's finding humor definitely helps. Because the idea of this is to, when you embrace something, you just take it as it is. And then I have this principle that from Bashar, that is to have a positive attitude regardless of what's happening, right? So when you combine look, let me just embrace this, it's not good or bad, it just is, and then you find ways to maintain or just have a positive attitude regardless of what's happening. Then you find humor, you just accept things and don't let it affect you. Finding ways to like make it a positive spin of, like I'm so glad that this is happening, because it's preparing me for bigger challenges, right? Like this challenge is nothing compared to the challenges that I actually want to have, because you can judge the size of a person by the size of their problems. Like if you want to do big things, you will have big problems. And Gary Vee said the other day on this video that he even gets excited about like problems because he knows they're coming. Like it's like, well, I just got to solve this new problem. It's like, another shit sandwich, or, there's just like, I know, he says like, I expect to be there's going to be a lot of shit eating on my days. Like, it's just part of it. Like, I am operating at this level. Shit is going to happen, period. Like, I know, I accept it, and I find joy in it because I am able to have this big problems because of where I'm at. Like, I'm blessed to have this problem. So I already know that I'm like another day, eating shit sandwiches of shit that's going to happen because it's part of it. Like, and I love that. I love that, and I take that, and that's a way to say, like, he's embracing the suck.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, it makes me think a lot about like I had Daniel DiPiazza on my podcast. He's a podcaster and philosopher, entrepreneur and philosopher. And like one of the things that he was talking about was like people want to become an entrepreneur to like not have any bosses. But then the reality is like as an entrepreneur, like it's like everybody's your boss because you have all your employees you have to work for. You have like your other clients you're working for, right? It's just like kind of this endless place of serving other people in that position.
Yeah, you say like you don't want bosses, but then you ended up having to serve so many people. So it's like if you're a server, right? Think about it, right? Like you, like I have my boss and I'm serving out, like, and everybody's kind of your boss because you have to serve them. But so it's like that. Like it's you have the clients that you have to respond to. Then you have your employees looking at you as like, lead us, and then then you have if you have more responsibilities of like. You also have a life, right? Like you might have pets, you might have kids, you might have wife, right? So like you have all these things going in more directions that sometimes if you are just an employee, you're kind of like, well, I have this one manager and then I can just focus a little bit more on my family and not having to worry about like serving all these crazy people, right? So definitely it's people have to understand that when you choose to be a leader and a boss, like you will be responding to a lot of people, because if not, then you won't get very far. Then you will become a self-employed, which is different. You're not a boss. You're not a real business owner if you're just being self-employed and serving just a couple of people, and then you're just giving a job to yourself and that's it.
Yeah. What's one of the things that like entrepreneurship has taught you over the last couple of years?
A lot of things. Has taught me to focus on myself, because the more that I can be healthy, the more knowledge, the more skills that I have, the more I can provide value, and then the more that comes back to me, because I'm putting all this energy out, and then I receive it back in many different ways, not just money, right? Money just being one way of abundance, but there's many ways to receive value and to attract abundance. And entrepreneurship has taught me to be a better communicator, has taught me to really just trust the process, be patient, and really just going so deep into spirituality, because for me at least was the only way to really find joy in all these challenges and just accept life as it is. Because I always kind of like felt special growing up, and I guess my family raised me a certain way, and I always have good grades and all these things that I felt blessed and I felt special. I felt like I'm destined for big things. And then when I came into entrepreneurship and I started failing so much, then you're like, maybe I'm not special. But then as I learn more about entrepreneurship and I learn from all these entrepreneurs, I was like, look, it's just about not quitting. Like you will figure out along the way, just not quit, just be very honest with yourself and push and do the best you can and trust, just go work hard, be intentional, but also do it with grace, do it with gratitude. And that's, got me into spirituality, which, make me the person that I am right now. Like that I have so much depth and I can communicate so much better and I can provide so much value by the lessons that I learned along the way in entrepreneurship, which are plenty, and I mentioned some of them, which it's more fulfilling because I love feeling useful. So as an entrepreneur, you realize that there's infinite ways to be useful. So it's just a matter of find what you're passionate about and what you're willing to commit for a long period of time and where you're willing to fail at for a long period of time too, and a lot of repetitions. And then just take it as further as you can take it with no insistence of what the outcome should be. Let abundance come in any way. Keep a positive attitude and continuously analyze your beliefs and especially those that are related to fear, and let go to the ones that no longer serve you. And entrepreneurship got me to that place.
Yeah, so it sounds like entrepreneurship was such a catalyst for you for change. Like even earlier you talked about that. It's like almost like the pressure of how difficult it is. Like let yourself get to a place of spirituality, which is kind of interesting, right? It's like some people find that through like AA, where it's like their problems with like alcohol or a substance might be so intense. It's like you have to like surrender to something bigger than yourself. But with you is pardon me, like for you it was more almost entrepreneurship, right? This like movement towards something. It became so big that you had to find something bigger than yourself to tap into to propel yourself forward.
And now that you say this, I got me thinking, I could have stayed in the military and cruise. Like, to be honest, yes, I had to embrace the suck and all the different things. I mean, there was a lot of things that weren't that great. But I had a guaranteed paycheck every 2 weeks, regardless if I worked or not. And so if you fly under the radar, do things in the few things that you are, and stay there. Like, you don't have to be the best overachiever. You just have to be good and be responsible and all that. And you can cruise. Like, you can cruise. Like, yeah, there's going to be times it's going to suck. But like everything, life, like entrepreneurship is hard. Being in the military is hard. Like having a job is hard. So just choose your heart, right? And I could have just stayed more comfortable in a way, knowing that I kind of belong to the government, but they will take care of me. Right? So when I went into entrepreneurship, you get forced to deal more with you because you don't have like nobody telling you what to do. Nobody owns you, because in the military, they own you, and they literally can tell you, no, you're going to Syria. Oh, no, you're going here. Like, you got to do it, or you get thrown into jail and like it's great. They own you. So when you are an entrepreneur, you have to deal with your stuff, because if you're addicted to things like alcohol or drugs or women or sex, right? Like whatever the case may be, you can kind of like still kind of stay addict, but then don't do it too much and not let it take over you, and then just kind of be in this survival, not thriving, but just kind of, I'm getting my paycheck, I'm getting stuff, I'll get kids and blah blah blah, and I have this, like, I don't want to insult anybody, but like kind of mediocre life, and look, if you're really happy and all that stuff with all those things, I'm not judging. I don't like, do you, like, if you like it and you have a good thing going on, great. But for me, that wasn't enough, period. It's just, I felt like I was not living up to my potential. And when I went to the entrepreneurship, and then I'm like, okay, it's me against me, and me trying to give value to people for them to pay me, and there's no guarantee. And just, so it forces you, like, you have to become better, because if not, you can't be an entrepreneur, period. Like, and you can't eat, like, you're not making money, you can't eat, like, you gotta get a job, like, you gotta do something. So that, putting myself in that, like, I either swim or drown, like, that's it. Like, I am, or like people say, like, jump out of the plane and build a parachute along, like, going down. That's kind of how I did it. I was like, I'm quitting. I'm getting out of the Air Force. I got this job, but then I quit that job, and I didn't even have recurring revenue. I just closed 2 5-figure deals, and I thought I was a shit. And then ended up hiring the wrong people, and I lost a bunch of money, and got to do refunds and all that. And I had to escape out of that. And there was times to me that I was like, I don't even know if I want to live anymore, because I didn't like the military, but looking forward, I always was looking forward to, I'm like, it's gonna get better. It's gonna get better. So the hope got me like going. So it's like, embrace the suck, it's gonna get better later. Embrace the suck, it's gonna get better later. But then it got to a point, it was like, okay, now I'm out of the Air Force. Now I'm doing this for myself. I thought that this was a dream, but it isn't. Like, does life is really worth living? Like, I got to that point. Like, is it really worth living if I'm always suffering? So then I was like, there are ways for me to get out of here where I'm at right now. And that's what brought me to spirituality. And that's what, like, look, I have enough. I am exactly what I need to be, Like, all these things had to happen. Like, my soul made this contract to really learn. So there's no bad people or wrong people. I just attracted them. I have these interactions because of a reason. So when I started changing that, I stopped being so hard on people, and I started just being look, it's all my fault. It's all me. I'm the creator of my reality. Nothing really matters. So I choose what matters. And, you know, basically the same things that I've been saying through this podcast that I live by.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, yeah, I mean, what I heard in that, right, is like you literally got to this point where, because I think with the military, right, it's like, okay, you have your next paycheck coming through, or like there's going to be the next thing. But like when you're going through entrepreneurship or any sort of dream chasing or anything without that, like at least perceived security, right? It's like you don't know what's going to be on the other side. I mean, I've definitely felt a lot of that with building this podcast or other work that I've done, where it's like, I don't know, you know, is anybody listening to this? Is anybody paying attention? Is
It's
anybody
going to be
going
worth it, right?
Or am I going to spend 5 years of my life just without anything, right? And it can be terrifying. I think a lot of times that fear isn't really like talked about, because I think entrepreneurship gets glamorized a lot, and we talk about all these great things. And it's something I even really appreciate about Alex Ramosi, who, you know, we talked about a little bit last time and earlier in this podcast, is like him just sharing some of the things, like, you know, if you've read like $100 million offers, I believe in the opening part of that, he talks about like, you know, basically losing $100,000 and like, as he's about to like give up, and like it's his, you know, his wife or his partner at the time who is just like, you know, I would sleep with you under a bridge and I'd be with you. But like you need those people in your corner to get through this stuff, right? Whether it's like through spirituality and friendships and connections, because it can be so hard and scary when it's like it feels like the whole world is crashing around you. And like for me, I know that like what's been fascinating about like building this podcast and doing things is like every time I get to that moment and I get through it, it's like the universe, like I feel like gives me like another wink, like the next episode just does really, really well, or there's something else that happens, or somebody comes and speaks to me about the impact that had on their life or whatever it would be, right? And there's just like these little things that I'm like, okay, cool. Like I feel like that's that divine wink that I'm like on.
I love it, divine wink. I haven't heard that one before, but I say signals and things, but the wink, I like it.
Yeah, I got that one from Jim Carrey. He talks about like he has a story. I don't remember the story what it is, but he talks about like those little winks from the universe where it's I love it.
Synchronicities and stuff. I'm gonna use it because the synchronicity, I use that and I see it, and that's what I believe when I see angel numbers and when I'm thinking about something and then somebody comes and talks to me about the same thing, or you know, I see the synchronicities. Like for example, like yesterday, I sent so Chels out of nowhere. She's like, "Hey, look, what about what is your TikTok audience? Is there like English speaking or not?" I was like, "Oh, there's a mix." And she's like, "Well, you want to go live with me?" And I'm like, "Of course!" Like I always want to talk with her. It's always amazing. So then she tells me, I say like, "Hey, topic ideas," and I say about like the can we be flirty and exclusive at the same time? Like I brought that in, and she's like, "You know what? I was just talking with my friend about that topic recently," and I'm like, synchronicity, right? Like that. Those are little things that happen. So I love that. I guess like that little wink from the universe. I love that term. And one thing that Alex Ramosi says is that like he says the work is the way, and I don't know if he said this but somebody else, but it's just basically the same. Is like the process is the destination. So that's one thing that I really like about the podcast is I'm enjoying this so much. And we're recording it and we're gonna distribute it and all that. Great, but like this right now, as we're creating it, this is amazing for me. Right. So that's what, and I know that it's like perfect. Like this, I should be doing this thing because the process is the destination. Like I am enjoying this right now, and whatever comes at that moment because of the recording, great, like gravy, and I'll enjoy it at that moment as my present moment. Right now, I only care that I'm enjoying this conversation right now, so I'm enjoying the process.
Beautiful. Yeah, I feel the same. I'm enjoying this process a lot right now. Foo, we're near the end of our time together, and there's one question that I always just leave the guests with. And you know, what's one question that you have for the audience that would maybe shift their perspective or have them think about something in a different way?
One question for the audience is to ask yourself, how can I maximize my energy rather than my day?
Beautiful. Foo, where can people find you if they want to follow you or stick with you?
Instagram is my favorite social media. Majority of my content is in Spanish. So if you want more English, I guess LinkedIn would be the most English one. But I'm always like, kind of mixing it up. I mean, I'm bilingual. And obviously, you reach out to me in English, I'll talk to you in English. So it's James L as in Louis Foo, as in Foo Fighter, Foo. And if you put that on Google, you'll find me. I even have a Google Knowledge panel. You put James Foo Torres, and I'm pretty sure you put the links in the description and my name, right? And you can look it up. So Instagram is the best way, because typically DMs are the ones that check the most and that I enjoy the most. And that I think that just social media for me is my favorite way. So connect with me through there.
Beautiful. James L. Fu, this has been a lovely conversation. I'm so grateful to have you on. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah, we will, for sure.
All right, ciao.